On today's episode of the Locked On Utah Hockey Club podcast, we've got your Minnesota Wild preview. In fact, we're going to look ahead to the entire three-game road trip coming up here on the weekend. Plus, we'll update you with the injury report for both teams because there's a key name or names for the Wild that are swimming out there. Plus, we got the FanDuel odds and more. We'll be right back. Tom Callahan, Robyn Leaño, we're dropping the puck right now on the Locked On Utah Hockey Club podcast.
You are Locked On Utah Hockey Club, your daily podcast on the Utah Hockey Club, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, everybody. Thanks for joining us and making us your first listen each and every day. When it comes to the Locked On Utah Hockey Club podcast, we talk the Utah Hockey Club. We talk things going on around the NHL. Sometimes we tell dad jokes. No matter what we're doing, we're having a good time. So I'm veteran NHL voice Tom Callahan, along with longtime team analyst Robyn Leaño. We've got a three-game road trip to preview here for you, starting off with Minnesota on a Thursday night in Minnesota. And Robyn, there's a lot going on for both teams here. We're going to talk about the injury report a little bit later on because that's important. But this stretch is important. Utah just finished up its season-long 7-game homestand. They come out of it under 500, certainly a little bit disappointing as we look back at that homestand. I know the team would have liked to do better, but at least I guess they finished strong and they've got a little momentum built here heading out on the road.
Yeah, I mean, they ended the road trip with a couple of big wins, and I think that that's certainly what I'd like to see from the Utah Hockey Club moving forward. They got a couple of tough matchups coming up. They got the Minnesota Wild tonight, and then they got the right after that, almost immediately after, they got the Winnipeg Jets again. Who they just beat, just recently. So it's gonna be an interesting one, but we'll preview everything. We'll get you guys all ready. Let you guys know what to expect from both teams, or all the teams that we're gonna get ready. We're gonna gear you guys up for. It's going to be a good one.
It is. And, Robyn, I want to mention that someone had asked me coming off of the game against Winnipeg, the Winnipeg coach, and this was a comment from one of our followers on Blue Sky. Said, question for you, Tom. Fun game to watch as a Utah fan. I've read articles about the Jets coach calling the loss embarrassing. So, Robyn, in our opinion, this is the question. What's the ratio of Utah played amazing versus the Jets played poorly? And I think that's an excellent question, and that's why I wanted to save it for the show. So that's from Maceo77 on Blue Sky. I appreciate that. So it's a great question, Robyn. In your opinion, what's the ratio there?
In this case, I'm going to say around 65 to 70% of it really was the Jets played poorly. And again, I don't want to make it sound like I'm discounting how well I thought Utah played, but they played above. It looked like they were playing above expectation because Winnipeg had played well below. Right? It's like, oh my God, like this. It looks like they just completely not gave up wasn't the term I'm not good looking for, but just wrote off Utah. I feel like that's what it looked like. It just looked like they wrote off Utah and just didn't give it their full effort.
So I'm going to agree that I think they were looking past Utah. I do believe that because they had a game with the Avalanche here that they played on Wednesday night, which, by the way, they bounced back and won that game 3-2 in overtime. But I actually, Robyn, don't think it's that much that Winnipeg played poorly. Now, they didn't play great. They didn't play Jets hockey. And Connor Hellebuck didn't give them every save he's given them all season long. Now, if you've watched my Winnipeg Jets this year, you would know that he gives them not only the saves that they need, but even some of the ones they don't even remotely expect. He's been superhuman. Mm-hmm. So he was merely human against Utah earlier in the week. But I want to give credit to Utah where credit is due because a lot of those pregame keys, Robyn, and we talked about this in one of our postgame shows earlier in the week, they check those boxes. So Utah wasn't in the box at all. Winnipeg was barely in the penalty box. This was a 5-on-5 game. And when you look at the Winnipeg Jets, 5-on-5, they are the second best goals for ratio in the league. So really, that should have played out for Winnipeg. You have to give some credit to Utah because they jumped on them in the first period. That in minor league hockey, we say don't let them off the bus. They didn't let them off the bus. They never got their legs underneath them. They never got things going, and that was all part of the plan. Hot start, keep that momentum. I think Utah Hockey Club deserves more credit for executing their game plan than people are willing to give them right now. And honestly, Robyn, I'm going to call it a Coyotes hangover. That's what this franchise has. They have the Coyotes hangover. People still in their minds, like they picture the dumpster fire that could take at times at Coyotes games. And that was not all the time either. I don't think that was 100% fair reputation, but by and large, they were a losing organization.
Yeah. I know if that case, that was a lot. I think the thought process was a lot more of that. And what's funny was during that era, every single time I would go up against another host of the Locked On Network, whoever it was like, it was like, and I would listen to their show and they completely wrote off Arizona. And when they
did you throw hands, Robyn? Did you throw hands?
Sometimes I did. Sometimes I felt I was willing to throw hands. I was like, oh, hold up. But when Arizona won those games, they're like, oh my God, they played so blah blah, played so poorly and everything. And I'm like, don't discount how well Arizona played in that game. They really put off an amazing effort, like a 60-minute game. They did this right, they did that right, and they looked like a playoff team. And I said that when they did that, what I call the Stanley Cup gauntlet of the previous season, this last season. And I mean, but still, they didn't get the credit. And it looks like I was a little bit guilty of that. I didn't give, I'm not giving Utah as much credit as you seem to be given. And I think because a lot of that really is because of the higher expectation I had for the Jets going into that game. But we'll see how things go in now. Now my expectation, I wouldn't say my expectations has changed, but I now have that extra hope that, okay, Utah's got some momentum. Can they carry this as they get ready for Minnesota tonight?
And when the Jets woke up in the third period of that game and started pushing, they scored two quick ones. And Robyn, I think we all got a little bit of the going when that happened. But Utah managed to do something that is a step forward for this team. They calmed it down. They brought it back in. And even though it got a little slapdash towards the end again there, they didn't allow another goal, and that's the important part. So that, to me, is a growth moment. Now you're heading into a game against the Minnesota Wild, who have everybody's favorite player, Marc-Andre Fleury. It's hard not to love the Flower. Just great guy, class guy. I mean, pranks Sidney Crosby. Who else does that? And some really funny stuff, too. By the way, if you're a fan, if you have any sense of humor at all, look up what he has done, Marc-Andre Fleury has done to Sidney Crosby just this season alone. Some of the stuff is absolutely hilarious. So, yeah, that's a worthy rabbit hole for you to go down. But Minnesota's got great goaltending. They have – and I'm going to talk some numbers about Minnesota, and I'll probably save this for our next segment here, Robyn. But Minnesota is a team that I have some questions about, but – they, despite all the questions that I'm going to raise, still find ways to win hockey games. And I have to respect that. Because if you're a franchise that on paper I don't think should be winning hockey games and you're still doing it and it's the end of January, you have something going right.
I mean, I have a feeling that a lot of people going into the preseason originally had Minnesota, I think, like finishing like 6th or 7th in the in the Central Division, but this team is winning. They are finding ways to win, and they're looking good doing it. And it kind of caught people off guard. I feel like the Central Division was completely turned in the whole, like like outside, inside out in a way where it felt like the teams that we kind of thought would be like towards the bottom middle are kind of like rotated and somehow moved up to the top. It's such a weird year in the Central Division.
It really is. And today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Robyn, coming into this game, standings-wise, and again, if you're a fan who's new to this, my recommendation when you go to the NHL.com standings page, sort by wild card. That is what matters to you as a Utah Hockey Club fan. Sort by wild card so you know what's going on. Coming into it, Utah is 4 points out of that final wild card spot, currently occupied by Calgary. And teams are just packed. Between 51 to 45 points, there are 5 teams in that window. Utah is one of them. Seattle, St. Louis, Vancouver, Calgary. Minnesota is at second place in the Western Conference behind Winnipeg, 60 points. So that's who you're playing this week. Twice you play the division leader, the Central Division leader, the Jets. And then the second place team once the Minnesota Wild. So this is not an easy game. And the Wild, again, I'll tell you what, let's get into the numbers here in just a minute behind all of this, because Robyn, when I tell you a bunch of this stuff, you're going to scratch your head and say, how are they in second place?
Yeah, we'll do that right after this.
And today's episode is brought to you in part by FanDuel. From the first whistle to the final drive, FanDuel makes the NFL playoffs even more exciting. Right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win your first bet. That's $300 to keep the action going. The FanDuel app is easy to navigate, and the variety of bets keeps every game exciting. Plus, when you win, you get paid instantly. No waiting around for your winnings. Whether you're betting on your favorite team or just looking to add some excitement, perhaps to this championship weekend coming up here, FanDuel has you covered. Just visit FanDuel.com to get started today. $300 in bonus bets. That's FanDuel.com. Make this playoff season unforgettable with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Robyn, I have numbers. I feel like I'm going to lawyer this a little bit here. My former color partner, Stu Grimson, would be very, very proud of me because he does a lot of lawyering. And Stu's remarkable. Spent 14 years in the NHL as an enforcer, then went to the University of Memphis and got his law degree. So pretty remarkable by the big fella there. So, all right, let me start with this. I don't understand how the Minnesota Wild are in second place. Here's my case against the Wild. Number one, a +6 goal differential. They are the only team with a single-digit goal differential that is in the top 3 of any division. Any division, +6. They are barely a game over 500 at home. They have actually scored less points at home, 11, 10, and 1. But on the road, they're 17, 5, and 3. I don't understand this. So that's another number I want to give you, Robyn. I have more. But wait. Oh, yes, there's more. Okay. Minnesota Wild. Tom. Goals for per game, 2.94. They are the only team in the top 10 and actually top 11 that does not have a 3+ goals a game team. Then goals against, 2.81. That happens to be the highest except the Toronto Maple Leafs in the top 10. Florida Panthers actually also 3.0. So they're 7th out of the top 10. So this isn't making any sense to me. 5-on-5, pretty good team, 1.15, but that's still not the best ratio in that top 10. But Robyn, I have more. How about the special teams? Subpar special teams. 19% power play. That's not good. And a 71.6% penalty kill. That's awful. Yet, they're the 7th best team in the league, and they are second in the Central Division. Robyn, I ask you, how does that make sense?
It doesn't. It's hockey.
if I would have said this is a generic hockey team, yellow jerseys with black lettering, and it just says hockey on the front, and I gave you all those numbers, you'd be like, boy, that's a bottom dweller, or at least it's a bottom half. No, nope, second in the Central, 7th in the NHL. How?
It's so weird. I'm gonna recall, one of the famous sayings of one of my quote original co-hosts of this show, Carl Pavlak, and saying hockey's dumb.
It is because I don't understand these numbers, but here we are. And so to me, it says a couple of things. It says when they win big. When they lose big.
Mm-hmm.
That's probably why the numbers are close to being even, or it's a lot of 1-goal games. I suppose you could spin it that way as well. But to not have the special teams numbers means you've got to be scratching and clawing it at 5-on-5. It also means that you probably have to really focus on staying out of the box if you're the Wild, because your penalty killing is abysmal. And this is the end of January. You are who you are right now. Like, what your team is in all of your categories.
For the most part, we know the identities of these teams.
So the question then is, what makes Minnesota special? And here's the other thing. They've been 6-4 down the stretch here. And I want to talk a little bit about the Wild injury report, because while goaltender Troy Grosnick's out for the season, 2 big names could be back tomorrow. Now, Marcus Johansson and Jonas Brodin still out. But Captain Jared Spurgeon and, yes, Kirill the Thrill, Dollar Bill Kaprizov, whatever nickname you want for him, a guy who is arguably having a Hart Trophy season, which, by the way, is the NHL League MVP, if you didn't know that. He was having an MVP season before he went out. He had 50 points in, I think, 34 games. He'll be back. Cautiously optimistic is the report we're getting. Cautiously optimistic that both of them will be back for this game on Thursday night.
Yeah, and it really is that Kaprizov that gives me that little extra nerve, because if he plays tonight, actually does suit up, plays, gets the full the full rundown, he wants to play his normal minutes and play his normal style, the insane way that he always does, because he is, and as you said, he's been was having like a Hart Trophy caliber season up until they went out, and he's gonna want to pick up where he left off.
It's crazy that he's missed 12 games and he's still a top 25 scorer in the league. He's a 3-time All-Star, and I mean, 50 points in 34 games is crazy, but it's balanced scoring too for him. It's not just all goals. It's 23, 27 for 50. But he missed 12 games with a lower body injury. So getting him back is huge. Spurgeon's been out for 9 games with a lower body injury. So he's coming back now, and he's 35, but, not so much the production, but the leadership to get Spurgeon back in the lineup. So now you're going into Minnesota, a team that's not as good at home, but is getting a boost by these guys returning, as far as we know, allegedly. But just, they seem to find a way to win hockey games. Which Utah Hockey Club do we have coming into this? That is the other part of the question. Now, it's still Sergachev questionable, but Gunther is still out, Durzi out, Portuzzo out. So the injury list is a little shorter than it used to be, but Sergachev, I think, Robyn, whether he decides to be able to go or not, whether they hold him out for another one or not, I think that could go a long way towards tipping the balance of power.
It very well could. And I'm going to go ahead and also just put another name out there, of a name that, to me, like, I have liked the way even though there was a few losses sprinkled, like a loss or two sprinkled still in there, I will add in that I have liked the way Utah's played since the return of John Marino. And so I feel like that could play a factor. I feel like John Marino's helped at least reel in the blue line. I feel like that's certainly gonna help. Would I like to see Sergachev back? Yeah, of course. I would love to see Sergachev back, because he really helps produce, the most of the blue line offense. But I'm not going to complain. If John Marino can keep up the minutes, I'm happy.
Well, and two completely different elements from the game, obviously, as you point out. So, I mean, Sergachev is more the offensive guy, but the power play is going to be key. And for Utah, this is a little bit harder to do as a road team, but you've got to get Minnesota to chase you and take those lazy penalties, the hooking, the holding, the tripping, the slashing, meaning they can't keep up with you. You just have to outwork them. Mm-hmm. And that is something that Minnesota has not been done much of, is outworked by other teams.
Plus, we will also add that it looks like the good thing is Minnesota not as great at home versus Utah, which has a pretty good road record. So that could help out in this factor. Yeah, so I think I'd like to see how it plays out.
Yep, 12-8-3 on the road for the Utah Hockey Club. So I don't know. This is going to be an interesting one. I'm interested to talk about the odds for this game as well. So we're going to get into that, and then it is a 3-game road swing that's coming up. So we're going to give you a little look ahead on that one as well. The Jets and the Ottawa Senators involved in this one as the Utah Hockey Club head into the road for 3. We'll talk a little bit more about that when we come back.
And today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. I love going to live events, whether it's sports, music, theater, or comedy. One of my favorite memories, really, when it comes to just going to any kind of event, was going to the 2016 Western Conference Finals in the Stanley Cup playoffs, watching the San Jose Sharks on their run to their first ever trip to a Stanley Cup final. And as someone that was born and raised in the Bay Area, that meant a lot to me and a lot to, all those memories, something I will never forget. And I actually got those tickets from Game Time. And now Game Time has made it even easier to get those kind of tickets for your favorite events with the new feature Game Time Picks. With this feature, it filters out all the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. Recently, I was taking a look at some Utah Hockey Club games using the Game Time app. With Game Time Picks, I found amazing deals that, and you could even see the view from your seat before buying. The super deal is particularly impressive, offering great seats at unbeatable prices. Plus, the app's all-in pricing that when you toggle this on, it shows the total up front with no surprise fees at checkout. So, it pretty much says, hey, this is your out-the-door price. I absolutely love that about it. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? It's game time.
All right, as we get set to wrap things up here, our final segment on the Locked On Utah Hockey Club podcast. Thanks again for making us your first listen each and every day. If you're here, you're still listening, hey, click that subscribe button, won't you? Whether you're listening as a podcast or you're watching on YouTube, we very much appreciate it. Also, if you are on YouTube, make sure you give it the old like with the thumbs up there. That helps us and other hockey fans find us in the algorithm. It also helps you find more great hockey-related and Utah Hockey Club-related content. So win-win, right? If you click the bell, by the way, you'll get notifications when we go live. So, Robyn, do you want to go odds here first? I suppose we can do that before we look ahead here. What does FanDuel say about heading into Minnesota?
Yeah, so the FanDuel has a Utah Hockey Club as the underdogs once again. No surprise. I think as we talked about based off just standings-wise, Minnesota is going to be a tough one. Plus, take that home. Plus 128 for the Utah Hockey Club. Minus 154 for the Minnesota Wild. Total points is now set at 5.5, Tom. And it seems to be that's the most favored area that FanDuel likes to have the odds around 5.5. Because that's the median of scoring in the NHL for the most part.
It is, and that's why we always say it's the race to 3, Robyn, because 5 goals indicates 3-2, and then 6 goals would indicate either 4-2 or 3-3, and then somebody's got to score another one to win. So Minnesota, as I mentioned, is not a 3-goal-a-game team.
No.
They're 2.94, but also you look at Utah Hockey Club, they're 2.87. So that is under 6, but it is more than 5.5. That is why that is a really tough over-under number. That one could go either way because they're not quite combining for 6 goals a game. And it's going to be interesting to see, too, because both teams have goaltenders capable of stealing games, of shutting down an opponent. I probably would look to the under on this one. But with the return of Kaprizov, here are a couple of reasons to look at the over. The return of Kaprizov, number one, because he's going to be chomping at the bit to get out there, put on a show. He might get to 5.5 all by himself. So that's one reason why I kind of hesitate a little bit. The other one is, honestly, Utah's been finding a way to score goals lately, Robyn. The offense is starting to wake up.
Yeah, they have. They have started to wake up. And again, you just try to take a look at just some of the goals they scored against Winnipeg at home, and I love pointing to the tic-tac-toe goals, as well as just overall the way they're just skating to get to the net and finding those spots, and they're really forcing them forcing them in the good team, not forcing them in the bad, because they just to get a shot on, but they're forcing their way in to these perfect opportunities, and it's great. I like what I'm seeing from them, and it could make for a very close game. I still don't know if I would put this one as an over candidate. I honestly, Tom, if I am placing a bet on this game, I am steering clear of the over under in this game.
What is the spread? Goal and a half?
Goal and a half is the spread. Minus 205 on the plus 1.5 for Utah. So if you take the points, it's at minus 205. If you give those points to Minnesota, it is at plus 164. That's also a tough one to have. I'm going to give the points to Utah. So
that's what I was thinking.
Yeah. So if anything, it's going to be like a 3-2 loss, or a 3-2 or like a 3-2 4-3 win. Or even like a 2-1 win.
And even in a close game, Andre Tourigny is slow to pull the goalie. So whereas you have, like, if you had the Islanders, you almost know you're either scoring or giving up a goal, because Wah will pull the goaltender like to start the third period. It's wild. But Andre Tourigny is very much conservative with that. Doesn't get the goaltender out till very late in the going most times. So if you ever think about that in a close game, that can be a consideration.
It very well could be a consideration. So I think if I'm gonna give my pick, I'm giving Utah the points at that minus 205. Is it a good value pick? No. It's, to me, I would consider it on the quote safer side. Sometimes you just got to go for a safer pick and not just go for, hey, whatever's flashy and I can make more money.
What is Kaprizov there for anytime goal?
Let us take a look. Anytime goal scorer, Kirill Kaprizov is up on there at plus 110 with the best odds of the either team.
Yeah, I feel like he'll probably make that happen. So
plus 110. So the top 5 of odds for any time goal scorer according to FanDuel right now is Kirill Kaprizov at plus 110, Matt Boldy from Minnesota at plus 175, Clayton Keller at plus 210, Joel Eriksson Ek at 240, and Logan Cooley also at 240.
Okay. Well, interesting odds. I like it. It'll be interesting to see. Go ahead.
If you're feeling spicy, really spicy, Yusuf Alamakis plus 1,900.
I like that. That is a spicy meatball right
Or
there. If you're
or
into
if
it,
you really want to
or a
go the actual,
Swedish meatball,
or if you're
Finnish
feeling,
meatball.
spicy tuna, plus 950 for Liam O'Brien.
I mean, if you're going after it at that point, you might as well put the money on Valley Mackey. I think that's just me. But anyhow, let's talk a little bit about this road trip because I know we're coming up on it here time wise. But so start with Minnesota, then it's back to back with international travel up to Winnipeg for Friday night's game. Not a day off Saturday, really travel. So they're going to fly from Winnipeg Friday night to Ottawa on
Fly from Winnipeg. Don't
Saturday.
you got to take a bus first? There is no airport in Winnipeg.
Wow. My goodness. So the longest airplane rides here, allow me to digress. The longest airplane rides in the NHL are Denver and Edmonton. Those are the two longest rides from an airport to the host city going. I don't know why Denver decided to put their airport in Idaho, but they did. So it is so long to get from Denver
It's
out to the
also a
airport.
massive airport, but
It is a massive airport, but it's just ridiculous. So there's that, and then the Edmonton airport is nowhere near Edmonton, so that one is awful as well, especially with winter weather. But it's not like the Winnipeg airport is super close. Like St. Louis is another long ride to get to the city from the airport, but some of them are just ridiculous.
I just love the Winnipeg doesn't have an airport joke because it's just always play along. It's great.
Well, they have jets, right? That it try to land on Portage of Maine, which, by the way, coldest temperatures ever recorded in Winnipeg, Portage of Maine, freezing cold.
Minus 40 wind chill or something like that.
It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous.
I cannot.
Oh, it's also so flat there you can watch your dog run away for 3 days. Like there's just nothing to stop the wind at all. So all these good things. Hey, visit Winnipeg .ca or whatever. They're not going to sponsor us anytime soon at this rate. So, Robyn, you have that on Friday. So then, anyway, after you trek 6 million miles to get to Winnipeg's non-existent airport, you will fly Saturday into Ottawa early Saturday morning, and then you have a Sunday matinee affair against Ottawa. That's 3:00 Utah time, 5:00 in the Eastern time zone to round out this road trip. And that's not an easy game either because the Ottawa Senators, while they are up and down, are a difficult team to beat. I know standings wise, I mean, they're right about what Utah is, actually a little better, 52 points there in the Eastern Conference wildcard. They are over 500, 553 win percentage. And they're a better home team than they're 500 on the road. So not an easy trip, but Robyn, also with the travel mixed in, this is another pretty good test for Utah. Which team are you? Are you the team that just happened to win the last couple games, beat St. Louis convincingly, and I'd say beat the Jets convincingly? Have they turned over a new leaf?
I'd like to say so, but it's a tough one again because you got one of the same teams coming up again, added Minnesota, who's as you mentioned, just second in the Western Conference, and you got Ottawa, who's again you don't know what kind of Ottawa team you're really going to see. They're kind of a mixed bag. But to me, again, I feel like Utah can ride the momentum. I feel like Utah has got, and I will do a recall as you mentioned when you talked about the quote Coyotes hangover. I'm going to do the same thing. It's a leftover thing from the Coyotes where they would just beat teams they technically weren't really supposed to be beating, right? Where they're beating these teams that are in the top when they're towards the bottom. Made no sense for those two teams. But finishing off in Ottawa is the interesting one for me, Tom, because the last time these two teams faced off, that was during that that terrible slump at the end of October that I want to forget. I try to forget about. And I just reminded myself as you were talking about it. I'm like, when was the last time? I know these two teams played each other. Oh, that's right. It was during that October slump that I just want to forget about because it was that bad.
Yeah.
So that being said, Utah was going to want to prove themselves and be like, hey, that version that you saw there, that's not us.
So I'm going to call 2-1 on this road trip. I'm going to say they bookend it with wins. They're going to beat Minnesota. They're going to beat Ottawa. I think the Jets get their revenge on home ice. But I'll tell you what, that's tidy. You take 2 out of 3 on a road swing like that, especially against all teams in the playoffs. I'm good with that.
I'm happy if a 2-1. I'd even be happy for like a 1-1-1.
Okay, 3 out of 6. I could see that.
Yeah.
But
Come out.
no, I'm greedy. I want 2 wins.
Tom wants that extra point.
Oh, absolutely. Because I think it's going to make all the difference. I mean, look at, again, I go back to how tightly packed the wild card is right now. And this is as of, let's see, with everything kind of in the books here heading into this game on Thursday night, you have the gap first to second wild card, Avalanche 58, Flames 51. Flames are in. So that is what we're looking at right now. So then you want to see how far is that gap? Well, the answer is as follows. Calgary 51, Vancouver 50, St. Louis 50, Utah 47, Seattle 45. It is a 6-point gap between those 5 teams. And Anaheim is at 42, Nashville 41. I don't think those teams are really going to have much to say about it, but the Kraken are still in striking distance. Utah has 46 games played, although the Flames have 45. This, again, I mean, we talked about it, Robyn. They go 5-2 on the homestand. They're actually in the wild card spot right now, but they didn't. So now you've got to pick up games against the beatable teams, and now you've got to start to beat some teams that are in front of you in the standings. And this weekend is a great chance to do it.
It is a great chance to do it, and I'd love to see them get right back into the mix here.
Yes, absolutely, and I believe they can. And if they're able to get healthy later on, we'll see. But at this point, this is all about positioning for the trade deadline, which is going to be here before we know it. I mean, now we're saying instead of months, we're talking weeks.
Yeah,
and it's creeping up. So believe me, as you alluded to in one of our previous shows, we will have plenty of coverage.
we
when
will
it
have
comes to the
plenty of
trade deadline.
coverage. We'll have between just rumors and speculation, kind of just playing for fun trade scenarios, but also trade breakdowns when they happen. We will get them for you. So everything and anything you guys want to know about the trade deadline, we will have it ready for you. Plus, maybe we'll bring back the Hockey 101, because some of you guys maybe might be watching the NHL for the first time. You don't know, might not know exactly how the NHL trade deadline works versus your favorite sports league that you watched previously. Maybe you're coming in as just a primarily Jazz fan. You only watch the NBA, plus maybe a couple other things. We'll let you guys know.
The best part about hockey is how you can get hooked on a playoff run. And if you actually get into the playoffs, there's nothing like playoff hockey. I hope Utah fans get to see that this year, but I don't know if they will.
Playoff torture, Tom.
Oh, hey, everybody has a chance. You just need to get in.
It kills me, but I also love it.
Yes, it is. It's beautiful agony. So, all right. Well, Robyn, I guess that pretty much wraps it up on my end. Anything else you want to add here before we call it a show?
No, I think we're right up against it for the day. So I feel like anything I do have, I could probably say for post game.
Okay, we'll do that. And we will have a post-game show, a wrap-up of this Minnesota game as well. So, all right, everybody, thanks for joining us. You can find us on social media anywhere you need to. Just look for the Locked On Utah Hockey Club podcast. Like, subscribe, follow, comment. We used one of your questions in the show tonight, so feel free to reach out and find us anywhere you can on social media. All right, so for Robyn Leaño, I'm Tom Callahan. Thanks for joining us here for the Locked On Utah Hockey Club podcast.